Hey, Lore Smiths, I hope everybody's doing fine. I got into Dungeons and Dragons about 25 years ago, apparently, because on the back of this book that I took from the attic this morning, it says 1996 here at the bottom. So geez, that means this is the start of my role-playing journey, and apparently that started 25 years ago. So I thought it'd be fun to just, look at these things again, which I still have a big love for. I really love these vintage, kind of retro time period of Dungeons & Dragons books. But 25 years ago, obviously, I had no clue that today I would be making a living. My work would be to make Dungeons & Dragons books. And with the experience I have now doing it professionally, it's going to be interesting to look at some of these books and, through the lens of me running my own company, making these kinds of books. So that's going to be interesting. Comment in the video, comment here if you love these vintage retro Dungeons & Dragons books. Is that the same time period where you started? I'd love to hear which kind of modules and supplements are your favorites, so do comment. I'd love to hear about it. Sip of coffee. Right, so let's get stuck in. So running the realms, and as a graphics designer, one thing definitely stands out is the way that it says campaign expansion here. But the margins are so small, it's so tight. I would never kind of would have designed it like that. I really like the old school logo, by the way. The graphics, very nice, looks very cool. And then here, there's this weird little icon here at the very bottom that, looking at it now, I just have no clue what that meaning is. Is that, I don't know, the type of book that this is, and did all of these books have their own little glyph there, or is it just some random graphic? It's if anybody knows, it'll be interesting to to see what that is about. Obviously, these books from the past, a lot of them had a black and white print interior, or like this one, a two-color print setup, where essentially they print in two colors. So white paper, black ink, and then one color ink. That's a very cost-effective way to print. So I assume back in the day, this was just an economic way of doing it, having just two colors, and then only the cover is in a full color deal. And looking at it now, I think it still looks very good and very appealing. I remember these books as looking very, very exciting, and I always got a lot of ideas from just looking at the images. Some of them don't translate as well to black and white, so it's definitely, like a sign of the times where just some of these images were clearly not intended to be reproduced in black and white. But overall, I kind of like it, the aesthetic of this book, of this era of books being, so kind of simple. And I think what it does, the difference is nowadays everything is full color, but back in the day, we just had the text and a couple of very Spartan images, and your mind had to fill in a lot of the blanks. So it kind of forced us to use our imagination a whole lot more than maybe we are used to with today's books. So I remember very fondly just, scouring through all the little details and, what would the images mean and these little icons, and just it opened up so much potential for imagination and adventure. So these books really definitely for me are all about adventure and a real deep sense of role-playing. Yeah, very, very cool to see this again. So one thing I noticed on the backs is that I don't think they do nowadays is where it's essentially an advertisement for the entire product range. And to me, as a publisher, this is kind of scary because a lot of the times products in a range change. They go in stock, out of print. So it's kind of a ballsy move to say, well, this is all of the products we have, and we're committing to it, because sometimes things change, but once it's printed, it's on there. So doing it like this is definitely a ballsy move, and it's also, I guess, a sign of the times because 25 years ago there wasn't really internet where you could update things daily. So this was, quite a clever and smart move to have a little bit of advertising going on, because you would go like, oh, geez, I have this book, but look at all of the other things that are out there, and the store that you were buying from may not have all of these things. So then you could go out and ask for it. So yeah, really, again, a sign of the times, a time before internet. Really cool to see. I always loved, the sense of that there's more out there, and that's what they're saying as well. You're reading this book, but now see the rest of the world. That's a really, really nice touch. Yeah. So again, 1996. That's a long time ago. I'm 41 now, so I was, in my teenage years back then. Really cool to see this books. So a lot of the stylistic choices are still the same. Table of contents, starting with a credits page, a typical 2-column page layout. Your chapter headings, a heading 1, a drop cap styling. Here with the embellished first letter. So a lot of the design decisions that we still see in the books today really were already established in the early books. We still have a 2-column layout. We still have, going from heading 1s to heading 2s. It's just the artwork and the use of full color print that has changed the aesthetics of the books a lot. One thing I noticed as well is that with the older books, sometimes they used an incredibly small font. If you look at today's book, it's a lot easier on the eyes to read. So potentially they were forced to use a small font to be able to get all of the content in a 64-page book. So what I assume happened is they decided to have the production have 64 pages, which is dividable by 4 number to be able to print it. And then they somehow needed to fit all of the content within the 64 pages because they didn't want to go larger. More pages cost more money to manufacture. So it seems to me that they may have used a smaller font just to be able to fit everything in those 64 pages. That's not a fact. That's just something that I assume was in the decision making, knowing the decisions that I need to make creating our own books. But yeah, we definitely today's books definitely have a larger font size where it's just easier to read, much easier on the eyes. And today's books are obviously, much higher in page count. Right, everyone. So I really love looking back at these older books. So if you have requests for me, perhaps, are there books that you really love and want me to look at and maybe talk a bit about it? Then definitely let me know. And until the next one, bye-bye.